The March and April LSATs were canceled. Oh no, what are applicants to do? Take the GRE? No way. Flex LSAT to the rescue.
Welcome to Admission Straight Talk, the podcast dedicated to graduate admissions and helping you approach the application process thoughtfully and successfully. Your host is Accepted's founder and world-renowned admissions guru, Linda Abraham. At Accepted, our mission is to get you to that unforgettable moment when you read your acceptance email and shout, "Yes, I'm in!" Confident you'll be attending the perfect program to help you launch the career of your dreams.
Welcome to the 366th episode of Admission Straight Talk. Thanks for joining me. Before we meet our guest, I'd like to highlight the featured resource for today's show. It is Accepted's free download, the Law School Admissions Guide, 8 Tips for Success. Get your copy to learn how to develop your law school admissions strategy, choose the right law schools for you, select the topic for your personal statement, and get accepted. You can snag your copy at accepted.com/366download. Our guest today is Steve Schwartz of the LSAT blog and the LSAT Unplugged podcast and YouTube channel, which we will link to from the show notes at accepted.com/366. Now, Steve graduated from Columbia University in 2008. In high school and college, he tutored various subjects and also helped prep test takers for standardized tests, including the LSAT. However, he really began to focus on the LSAT when he was applying to law school. He founded the LSAT blog in 2008 and never looked back. Today, 11 years or 12 years later now, he has helped thousands master the LSAT and get into law school and sometimes secure scholarships worth tens of thousands of dollars. Steve, welcome to Admission Straight Talk.
Thanks for having me, Linda.
Okay. Now, I don't want to go over the same stuff we went over last year. Lots has changed since we spoke almost exactly 1 year ago, almost to the day. We spoke then about the new digital LSAT. Today, we're going to talk about the new Flex LSAT. How is the Flex LSAT different in format or delivery from the old LSAT? And we'll get to content in a minute.
Sure. So the LSAT-Flex, the biggest difference is that it's online and students are doing it from home. The main reason being, of course, we're speaking during COVID-19, stay-at-home orders, quarantines, shelter in place, and so wasn't possible to do it in person. So they've moved pretty quickly to allow students to do it from home.
Okay. And what about content?
The content is the same, except the amount of content is different. So you still have your logic games, logical reasoning, and reading comprehension, but now on LSAT-Flex, you have only one section of each, whereas in the old in-person LSAT, whether paper and pencil or digital, you had 5 sections, 4 scored plus 1 experimental, and the 4 included 2 logical reasoning sections rather than 1 as we have now in the LSAT-Flex.
Are they changing the scoring as a result or keeping it the same scale?
It will still be the same scale, so students will still receive a score on the band of 120 to 180, but there are fewer scored questions, only 75 scored questions rather than 100 scored questions, so each question is worth more.
Right, naturally. And actually not so naturally, are they going to count the logical reasoning section twice somehow because they're only having half the number of those questions?
That was my big question as well. And fortunately, LSAC did tell us that, in fact, they will not double weight logical reasoning. So each section will be worth approximately the same, which leads you to ask, why was logical reasoning ever half the exam if they're willing to do an exam that does not include that? And I think it's simply the requirements of the platform, the requirements of administering a remote exam and shortening the length of it from 5 sections to now only 3 sections, which is done in now about 2 hours.
Should applicants adjust their preparations if they're taking the Flex LSAT?
Yeah, they certainly should. I mean, the fact that you're doing it 2 hours, 3 sections, not 5, logical reasoning has diminished in importance. Logic games and reading comp have relatively increased in importance. So the biggest thing is endurance matters a little bit less, but it's a lot more important to be warmed up and ready to go the second it starts because every question counts more.
Right. So, I mean, does that mean it should be faster? Does that mean that applicants should focus more on the games than they were on logical reasoning before?
Yeah, it does. So if logical reasoning was not your strong suit, the LSAT-Flex will be more up your alley.
Right.
And so regardless of where you are, spend less time on reasoning than you otherwise would have, more on games and reading comp, and also simulate your practice tests with 3 sections back-to-back, no break, only 2 hours, and make sure that all your test day prep is based on taking it at home. So at your comfortable desk, the same place you'll do the actual thing on the same device. Make sure that your internet connection is really strong, and make sure that whoever you're quarantined with or sheltered in place with, that they're not going to interrupt you for 2 hours. So they're watching the kids, they're watching the pets. No one's going to walk in on you during.
Right, right. Now, I understand that the LSAT-Flex is only available for those whose April 7th test was canceled. So this is not an option that's going to continue or be extended, at least at this point in time. Do you recommend that applicants sign up for the earliest LSAT they could be possibly ready for, in the hope that it too will be canceled and they can take the shorter Flex LSAT with only, without one section of the logical reasoning?
Yeah, that's a reasonable suggestion, but I wouldn't suggest students take it significantly earlier if they wouldn't be ready in time. So
Right.
if you were thinking of taking it in either June or July, and you think you could be ready by June, then I would say yes, definitely register for June, because the June 8th LSAT almost certainly won't happen, given that Virginia, for example, has a stay-at-home order till June 10th. So I don't see how the June LSAT is going to go forward. I believe it will be rescheduled as a Flex sometime within the next month. And if you have a good home environment, a good internet connection, the Flex is certainly a more pleasant test day experience and removes a lot of the anxiety around going to take it in person, booking a test center, traveling for it and such.
Being there at 8 in the morning.
Yeah.
And I mean, is it possible, has been any speculation, like, that some states could, or cities even, could keep the stay-at-home orders in place while others are going to loosen them? Is LSAT's policy going to depend on where you're located? Or do you know?
I suspect that they will only administer it if most, if not all, states have removed stay-at-home orders. I think only then would they administer it in person. I think it gets too complicated and messy, and of course allegations of unfairness if some can take it, others can't. And then you have people who might want to think about traveling to take it, which is obviously not a great idea, traveling across state lines and such.
Right.
So I imagine that if the world looks anything at all like it currently does, as we speak now in mid to late April, I suspect that it will not go forward in June, and possibly not even July, who knows. But I think that the Flex, my personal prediction is that the LSAT Flex will be around for quite a long time, because it's hard to go backwards on technology. And because given all the ambiguities around a second wave or a third wave of COVID, it might just be easier for them to stick with online.
Interesting. Taking remote proctoring and everything, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. What about the writing sample portion of the LSAT? That's gone bye-bye.
Yeah, so the writing sample, as we discussed last year, that when the LSAT went digital last July, they moved the writing sample online actually in June. So the writing sample has been online since June 2019. It's still online. And so that doesn't change at all. And actually that's international as well. LSAT Flex is only in North America right now,
Right.
but I suspect that if the June international LSAT is canceled, currently scheduled for late June, they'll administer that as an LSAT Flex also, because those folks already had their March LSAT canceled. And there's only so many months that the world's going to go forward with international students not being able to take the LSAT and apply, and law schools want them to. And as long as they have a good device and good internet, there's no reason not to allow them as well. I think that the May LSAT Flex is simply like an initial pilot they're trying to keep small. As you said, it's only for those who were taking March or April in North America.
Right.
But I think beyond, they'll open it up. And if anyone wants to take it relatively soon, register for June, like I said, because that'll probably be canceled and moved online.
Right. And then also give you, depending upon where you're at in your prep, a good deal of time to prep in the meantime.
Yeah, you've got a good couple of months at least.
Right, right. Are you adjusting, I guess you're adjusting your tutoring the same way you've just advised people to adjust their own tutoring in response to Flex LSAT. This is a stressful time really for everybody, whether they're test takers, applicants, test prep pros, or whatever they're doing. Now, test takers by their very nature are stressed individuals. How do you advise test takers to manage nerves leading up to and during the exam?
That's a great question. Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost is proper preparation can at least reduce some of the anxiety. So the more practice tests you do in a similar method to the way you'll do the actual thing. So same environment, same testing conditions, same length of exam, all of that, at least you run through the motions enough that the actual test day experience is like just another practice test. And if anything, LSAT Flex is easier to simulate because you always have access to your home. In fact, you have too much access to your home these days,
Right.
but you're always there versus taking it in person at a test center. it's not always easy to simulate getting together 50 of your best friends into a room, all taking an exam for 3 hours. That rarely happens,
No,
with
you
few
can't do that.
exceptions. So that's one thing, is simulate it at home at the same desk with the same device. Second thing is, remember that while the LSAT as a whole is incredibly important, no one particular test day will make or break you. You can always retake, and as you know, law schools don't average multiple scores. They only take the highest. That's what they have incentive to do. So that should at least lend some comfort. And the last thing I would say is meditation, mindfulness, focus training, whatever you want to call it, also pretty easy to do even while you're isolated and quarantined.
Particularly easy to do.
Yeah, exactly. So even just 5 minutes a day of that focus and strengthening your focus like a muscle can help you if your mind is wandering or you're getting bogged down in a question, to at least recognize that it's happening and note it and kind of break out of that cycle or that spiral.
And do you have any tips? These are kind of general tips, I guess, for as you, and I assume they become more relevant as you get close to test day. But any tips that are specific for, let's say, the day before Flex LSAT or the day of the exam?
The day before, I wouldn't do any studying at all. I would relax, take it easy, take a hot bath, watch a movie, go for a walk if you have a suitable environment to do that. But just try to clear your mind and relax. Trust that at that point you either know it or you don't. And then have a good, comfortable morning routine for the day of the exam itself, and also try to replicate that even on your practice test dates. So do whatever you would normally do. Drink coffee, don't drink coffee, exercise or don't, go for a walk or don't, whatever you feel makes you feel good and ready to go. And the last thing I would say about the day of is that actually you can select your time of day on LSAT-Flex, which is a really nice perk because not everybody's a morning person, and some test dates were always going to be in the morning. This way, you can choose, do you want morning or afternoon? There may even be evening options too. We'll see what they open up. But having that level of customization to your personal preference could be really nice too, and help you shape your day the way you want it to be.
Right, for sure. When will applicants get results from the Flex LSAT?
For the May LSAT-Flex, they're saying by June 5th. So it'll be within 2 weeks approximately. And it used to be 3 weeks with the in-person, so they're shortening it already, which they've always been able to do. But for whatever reason, they like to hold on to things and continue doing the number crunching. I'm hoping that with time, they will release results faster and faster. And my dream is for them to at least give students an estimated or rough approximation of where they stand based on their raw score, which they really should be able to do since it's a multiple choice test. They should tell you, how many did you get right? And they could say, this might be around a 161 to a 164, and give you a rough range at least.
Yeah. In GMAT, you get exam results immediately.
Yeah,
on the day
I'm
of.
hoping.
Right. Now, let's move away a little bit from Flex LSAT and talk about the larger situation for law school admissions and specifically application volume. How do you see coronavirus, COVID-19, the shutdowns, et cetera, affecting law school admissions and specifically application volume?
Well, that's a tough one. We have to think about the extent to which this mirrors previous situations, like most notably the 2008 financial crisis, when we saw a massive surge in grad school applications across the board. The biggest spike I've ever seen. Yeah, followed by a tanking. Yeah, so it's hard to say. I think if this looks to be roughly similar to 2008, then we may see a similar spike as applicants look to wait out any ensuing recession or depression for at least 3 years. So if this is similar to that, then I think we'll see a spike in applications for next cycle beginning this fall. If this is totally a new animal beyond anything else, then it could just lead people to stay home and do nothing. Even if they can't find a job, they may choose not to invest in law school either. So it's really an open question, but I continue to see engagement among my audience and my students that people are still interested in going. Amidst all the uncertainty right now, I am seeing people holding off on applying this cycle finishing up now because they don't want to start law school online in the fall, most of them. Right.
I'm trying to remember where I saw the article. I think it was the Wall Street Journal. And they were saying that graduating law school students, the third years now, are really struggling in terms of finding jobs or keeping the offers they got and, that kind of stuff. Normally, I would agree with you that, a recession means a spike in applications. And certainly historically, that was the way it always was. But I'm wondering if there's more news about graduating lawyers not having jobs, if that's going to put a damper on that particular phenomenon, which otherwise, again, I would completely agree with you. That's what we're going to see.
Yeah, entirely possible. At the same time, though, I do see applicants tend to be rather optimistic and think they're going to be the exception.
Of course. And in 3 years, it could be much better.
3 years. Exactly.
Right.
So the question is like, well, if you're graduating as a undergraduate senior now, what are you supposed to do? You're not going to, it's going to be hard to find a job, right? It's going to be hard to find a job in May 2020. So at least apply, kill a year and study for the LSAT, maybe take it this fall and then apply and then hope 3 years, do well in law school. Hopefully the situation will be different. And I think at least amongst like the top 14, if you're especially if you're at the top of your class there, you may still have many options available because there are always jobs for at least the cream of the crop lawyers.
Right.
And alternatively, if you can go to law school for free or avoid significant debt, it may not be a bad option either. If you get a top LSAT score above the medians of a school and they give you a full ride, that may be a good option.
Right, for sure. Is there anything you would have liked me to ask you about the Flex LSAT or law school admissions in the time of COVID?
I think we hit all the major points, actually. You asked great questions. You had a great research. Everything was smooth. Yeah, love it.
All right, great. Well, thank you, Steve. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you taking time to speak with me. Where can listeners and LSAT test takers learn more about your coaching?
Sure. Thanks, Linda. So folks can find me, Steve Schwartz, at the LSAT blog, as well as the LSAT Unplugged YouTube channel and Facebook and podcast and Instagram. I'm on all the major platforms, releasing information and updates constantly. And I also have books, guides, cheat sheets, courses, etc., both live online as well as on demand. It's all online, so easy to access.
Yeah, no, you don't have to worry about social distancing.
Exactly.
Or masks. So, all right. Well, again, thank you very much. Listener, thank you too for joining Steve Schwartz and me for a 366th episode. A quick reminder, grab your free copy of the Law School Admissions Guide, 8 Tips for Success, Acceptance Informative Free Guide to Law School Applicants, and you can get it at accepted.com/366download. And a final request, if you find the show worthwhile, please share the good word by leaving a review on iTunes. Your doing so helps us spread the news about Admission Straight Talk. There's a link in the show notes at accept.com/366 to our iTunes page where you can leave that review. And if you want to leave a review elsewhere, any other podcatcher that you enjoy, that's fine too. Thanks again for coming. This is Admission Straight Talk, produced by Accepted, and I am your host, Linda Abraham. I'll talk to you again next week.